Hi, my name's Ella, and a couple weeks ago I made this video that went pretty viral on Instagram and YouTube. Ever since making it, I've been getting a lot of requests asking me, how do you make the snowflake in this video? It's actually a pretty simple snowflake to make. It's a ring of hearts. It's very easy, very simple, and I definitely promise you can make it with stuff that you have just lying around the house. That being said, in case it is a little bit too tricky for you or maybe too hard for your kids or whatever, I'm also going to include an alternate version of this snowflake that's a lot simpler in case you want to do something a little bit easier. Now, to make this snowflake, the first thing you're going to need is a sheet of paper. You can actually just make this snowflake with printer paper, which most people have around the house. I'm going to be using American A2 printer paper, but you can also use A4 printer paper, which is the international standard. A lot of people ask me if I use a special paper like origami paper or something like that, and I actually think printer paper works better than origami paper because origami paper is really thin. Alright, so now that we have our paper, what we're going to do is fold it to make it into a square. So what you're going to do is take this top corner here and fold it to about here to make it into a square. So it's going to be about something like this. Alright, and I actually have one already. And so this is what it's going to look like. You can see here, I took the top corner and I folded it down so that it lines up along this edge at a right angle here. See? Alright, and now what we're going to do is take some scissors, and if you cut along this line here where your printer meets, kind of folds on itself, and you snip, you can cut away this rectangle and just get rid of this or use it for something else. And now we're going to have a square of paper, like this. Cool. So we're going to leave it folded in half diagonally, like it was. And the next step to folding our paper is we're going to fold this piece of paper in half again to make quarters. One thing to notice about the heart snowflake is that it's a 12-paneled snowflake, like this snowflake right here. So there's 12 hearts in the final snowflake that we're making. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so how do we get from a square sheet of paper to 12? Well, we're gonna get there. Okay, so now since we have this folded in half, again, we're gonna fold this corner to meet this corner. Kind of like this. And once you've done that, you're gonna have paper that's folded in quarters. See? So if we unfold it, you can see we have our square sheet of paper and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections to this paper. Alright, now the next and final step is a little bit tricky. In order to get those 12 panels that we were talking about earlier, we have to fold our 4 into 3, because 4 times 3 is 12. Folding paper into thirds is trickier than folding it in half because there's no even lines to match up. So what I recommend is just a little bit of trial and error. You can try things out, see how they work, repeat it. You can also try looking into my book, which has this all sorted out for you with lines that you can fold along, all printed up, and lots of easy to follow instructions, and also the designs already printed out so you don't have to draw your own design. Cool. So to fold it in third, you're kind of going to want to fold along this line to line up about here. So kind of like this. And then what you're going to want to do is flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So fold from here to meet up right about here. So kind of like this. Alright, so here's one I did earlier. You can see here that I have lines along there which indicate like the thirds, and I can fold this one to about here, and that's my first third. And now flipping it over, you can fold from here to about here along this line, and now we have our paper folded into 12ths. Great. So now it's time to draw the design on your snowflake. You can actually just completely skip this step. But what you can do is follow along in the design from the video. I'm going to quickly draw on, if I can do this. Okay, so not my best because that was pretty tricky, but you just draw your design onto the face of the snowflake like I do in all of my videos. Alright, next step is cutting out the design. You're going to want to get your scissors again, and I recommend starting with the smallest sections of the snowflake first. Just helps get a nice clean and precise cut. So I would start with this section here, and then I would move on up here. You could also cut off large sections of the snowflake to make things a little easier as you go. So you can trim right here across the top to get a straight line. And I do that in all of my videos before I start filming, which is why this is what my sort of starting baseline looks like in most of my videos. Now I'm going to cut along this little portion here, the inside panel. I don't think this is going to look anything like, I don't think it's going to look as good as the one I did in the main video because it's harder to cut when I'm talking. Alright, and the next step is to cut along this line, and that's the last part. One thing with hearts is I think it's important to maybe trace out your heart before and do like a tester. Where you just check the halves, because it's actually really easy to draw a heart half that isn't a very pretty heart when you unfold it. I also find you often want to go deeper than you think you need to when you're drawing a heart. Alright, and now you're going to unfold your snowflake. The only really important part about making snowflakes is you have to make sure you leave enough on each edge of the panel so that the snowflake connects and doesn't fall apart when you unfold it. So, unfolding your snowflake, not rocket science, but if you're too rough with it, they will definitely fall apart. And then here's the heart snowflake. So maybe I'll put it up here. Alright, so that's our heart snowflake. And I can also include some more how to folding instructions I have at the end. I have some that are more of an overhead view that's a little bit easier to follow. But in case that was too tricky for, maybe you're not a crafter or maybe you're doing this with younger kids, once I get this snowflake up on the wall, I'm going to take you through another way you can make this same snowflake that's just got easier folding, so it's easier to follow along. Alright, so the easier folding method is that instead of making a 12-paneled snowflake, what we're going to do is we're going to make an 8-paneled snowflake. This here is actually an 8-paneled snowflake. So what that means is I folded it in half 3 times. And the reason this is easier is because you don't have to fold it into thirds, so it's great for people who maybe aren't as crafty or for littler kids. Alright, so we're actually going to start in exactly the same way as we started making the other snowflake, which is with a sheet of printer paper. You can also use origami, but I like printer paper. Alright, so we are going to do the exact same thing, which is make this into a square. So fold this top corner to meet this bottom corner. Again, like this. There you go, perfect. Now what we're going to do is taking that folded in half paper, you're going to snip along this line here to turn this into a square. Alright, and now we're going to fold this in half, just like we did before, to make this into quarters. So you're going to fold this corner to meet this corner. Perfect. It is like good to try to make your folds as precise as possible, because it's the impreciseness kind of accumulates as you're folding. And that's kind of the main reason I don't show the folding in the videos, is because I find it hard and to fold things precisely. All right, so now that we have quarters, instead of folding it into thirds, we're actually just going to fold this in half again. All right, so we're gonna fold this corner. Can you see that? Fold this corner here to meet this corner here. And what we're doing is we're folding our quarters into 2, so 2 times 4 is 8. And there we go. So now we have 8 paneled snowflake. And let's just unfold it quickly and check. There you go. And so instead of having 12 panels here, what we have is 8 panels. You can count them. And now I'm going to draw my design on the front panel of the snowflake. And one thing to keep in mind is this is definitely a bigger panel than the 12 paneled snowflake. Like, the front piece here is bigger, so I'm going to make the design a little bit bigger just to kind of accommodate that. Because it's really important that you leave enough on the edges, again, that your snowflake can attach to itself. All the panels are attached to each other and it doesn't fall apart. All right, so I'm gonna just do this same design here with the double hearts and on this bigger snowflake. So normally I trace my designs out in pencil before I draw them, so I don't know what this is gonna look like. So there, I traced a larger double hearts. Now I'm gonna cut them out and we'll have a bigger snowflake. One question I get a lot is, what do you do with all of the waste from cutting paper snowflakes? And there's definitely like a ton of paper scraps that you make when you're making paper snowflakes. And I don't have a great answer, so if you have any ideas for what to do with all of these scraps, let me know, because it's definitely a little bit wasteful. All right, and I'm just gonna do one little trim. Okay. So this is what my larger snowflake looks like, the 8-paneled one, unfolded. And now let's unfold it and see what we got. So my hearts are a little bit weirder here because I didn't trace them out in advance, so they could use a little bit of refining. But this is what the 8-paneled snowflake is going to look like. So what you can see is it's really not as circular as the 12-paneled ones, but it's definitely still a snowflake, still pretty, still fun. So this is a good alternate in case you want to do something with easier folding. Alright, so that's how you make my 2-heart snowflake. I think I got like 90 million views, which is pretty insane. So let me know if you have any more questions. Really like making snowflakes with you. Any more questions, any more snowflakes you want to see, and I will see you next time. Thank you.